Hello there. Mr. Zimmerman here with a video lesson on Act 1, Scene 1 of Hamlet. Okay? Now, I will expect that you have watched the film version of this scene a couple of times, the way I assigned. So you already have a feel for the atmosphere of the scene. And you can picture in your head the characters as they speak. And so you have a feeling for what's been going on. Okay? And then we're going to talk through it. You watched it in the original language. And when we look at the text together, I will be concentrating on understanding the original language with you. But of course, our modern text has a modern language version running parallel to the original, so it can help you to understand what's going on, understand what they're saying. Okay? Now, I will always be referring to the original, like I said, and making all my marks on the original. I'm going to be marking them up on this video. And you'll be able to see how then Shakespeare communicated his ideas to his first audience, his original audience. So let's start with a quick recap of the backstory of the play. It says on this slide here, the guards and Horatio. This is the scene that we're going to start after we get the backstory. Okay, this scene is where the guards and Horatio see the ghost of the dead king, Hamlet, and they agree to tell the son, Hamlet Jr. Okay, and it says we also learn who Fortinbras is, which is true. We get to meet this character, or we hear about this character, who's important as an idea. We very see very little of him in the play, right at the end, but as an idea, he's fairly important. So, as far as the backstory goes, okay, we have a couple of specific items that are worth remembering. Okay, number one, Hamlet's family. Hamlet's family consists of King Hamlet, Queen Gertrude, and their only child, Prince Hamlet. Okay, Hamlet the king has a brother named Claudius. Okay, and this is the way the family was before the play started. But now the King Hamlet, has died. The brother, Claudius, has assumed the throne and married the queen. And the court agrees with this plan. It's a very reasonable plan for this day and age for someone like the brother of the king to marry the queen when the king dies. So that makes sense for the court. Okay? They're moving on and basically getting ready for the or preparing, defending for the potential of this war coming up that we'll talk about in a second. So, number 3, it says Hamlet's love for his father and his mother, actually, is sort of extreme, irrational. It's idealistic. He sees them as perfect and wonderful, and that's unhealthy, okay? He doesn't recognize that they are humans and flawed, and he doesn't like how people are moving on, okay, the way that they're moving on, Gertrude getting married and such, okay. Number 4, Hamlet is depressed. He's depressed to the point of suicidal. However, he won't kill himself because he knows it's a sin. There's a very theological reason why he doesn't want to kill himself, and his theology ends up playing a fairly important role in the play. You know, the Christian theology does. Also, the one other thing, the thing from the page before, the guards have been seeing a ghost, and the ghost is dead King Hamlet. And they have actually asked Horatio, a friend of Hamlet's, to come and see the ghost so that he can help them interpret who the ghost is and why the ghost is, because he's educated. He is a college man, just like Hamlet is. He's a college student. They're actually in the university at this point. That's where they get their education. But the universities are all based in the church, so theology is part of their university education. Okay, so now we can begin the actual play itself. we will start with, we'll start right on the beginning of scene one, and I will read through large parts of the text itself, and and talk about what goes on in the text. We're not going to listen to the text at the same time here, because you're reading a modern version of it, and when I assign you to read the modern version, I expect you are going to read that and understand what they're talking about, because it's designed for a modern audience. When I get together and talk with you, I'll talk about what's happening on the left-hand side of the page, and I'll explain it so that the right-hand side hopefully makes more sense. Okay? So the beginning of scene one. What we have here is we have the guards out on guard duty. Okay? And as they're on guard duty, the one meets the other. The one says, "Who's there? Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself." They're guarding, and they're anxious. They're scared, and so when the one sort of walks up, sort of sneaks up, the other one says, "Hey, wait a minute. What are you doing here?" Right now, as they talk, he says it's midnight, and the one asks, "Has it been quiet?" The other one says, "Yep. There's no one stirring, not even a mouse." Francisco or Bernardo says, "If you hear Horatio and Marcellus coming, let me know." Francisco says, "Oh, I hear him now." And then these two guys enter. Okay. Now, Horatio is not a guard. He's not royalty either. He's just a normal guy. He happens to be the friend of the prince. He's well aware of what goes on in the kingdom, and he knows Hamlet well. But he's nobody, I'll say nobody important, because he isn't technically important. He's just smart. He's educated. Now, the guards have asked him to come. Here they're simply greeting each other, saying, "Hey, how's it going? How has it been going?" And at this point, Marcellus says, "Have you seen it tonight?" Bernardo says, "I haven't seen it. Okay, I have seen nothing." Well, what are they looking for? They're looking for the ghost. Marcellus then says here, okay, Horatio says, "'Tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him," okay, touching this dreaded sight twice seen of us. "Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, to come on guard duty with us, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it." Now, there's nothing here. Okay, just a reminder. There's nothing here that shows that Horatio does not believe in ghosts. What Bernardo is saying is that Horatio doesn't think that we're seeing a real ghost. He doesn't think that what we're concerned about is anything to be concerned about. He doesn't say, "There's no such thing as ghosts. You're just ridiculous." Okay? In fact, Horatio knows that part of his duty, if you will, in coming out tonight is to identify the ghost, identify something about the ghost, speak to it, be an educated person so that he can interact with the ghost, so he can be, like interpret the ghost. Okay? Now, Horatio says, "Yeah, it's not going to appear. This isn't going to happen." He's not saying ghosts don't believe or don't exist. He says, "We're not going to see a ghost of the king." Now, Bernardo says, "Well, sit here and let us tell you what we saw." Horatio says, "Okay, I'll sit down, and you go ahead and tell us and tell me what you saw." Now, what he says is basically about this time of night is when we see the ghost, and then all of a sudden, poof, it appears. Okay. Now, let's see how they react to the ghost itself. Marcellus says, "Peace, break off. Look, there it comes again." Look where it comes again. Bernardo says, in the same figure like the king that's dead. He looks just like the dead king. Marcellus says, thou art a scholar, speak to it, Horatio. Bernardo says, doesn't it look like the king? Mark it, Horatio. Mark it, meaning listen to it. Okay, mark means listen to. Okay? Now, that isn't really communicated in this, but every once in a while you'll hear people say, mark me. I mean, pay attention to me, listen to me. So, Horatio says, yeah, it certainly looks like him. It looks most like the king, and it looks terrible. You know, I'm stunned and shocked. Bernardo says, it wants to speak. Marcellus says, question it. Well, it may look like it wants to speak, but it doesn't speak. Okay? We will watch as Horatio talks to it, and it doesn't speak. As a matter of fact, he says, what are you doing here? He says, by heaven, I charge thee, speak. And Marcellus says, oh, it's not talking, it's walking away. Horatio says, speak, I charge thee, speak. And Marcellus says, it's gone, because it exited. Now, here's an important little bit of theology, okay? In fact, what Horatio is doing here is he is commanding the ghost to speak in the name of God. He's saying, I charge thee, speak. I'm demanding you. In the name of God, really. By heaven is in the name of God. So, a theological note here is that when Jesus talked to the disciples, he said, you have the power to talk to demons. You have the power to cast out demons in my name. You have the power to deal with spirits as long as you do it as from my authority. So this is the exact thing that they're calling Horatio for, because he knows this. He knows this is the way it works. Now, when he tries to demand the ghost to speak, the ghost doesn't speak. It's not because of anything Horatio did wrong. It just refuses to speak. It walks away. Okay, it sort of runs away. Okay, so at this point, Marcellus and Bernardo are pretty certain that they've seen a ghost, and Horatio is acknowledges. He says, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself, but it looks like a ghost to me. Okay, and they say, doesn't it look like the king? He says, looks as much as the king. He looks as much like the king as you look like yourself. Okay, and I remember seeing him, or he's wearing the very armor he had when he combated Norway. Okay, Fortinbras was from Norway. When he fought with the Polacks on the ice, the Polish, and it certainly seems to be the king. Marcellus says, yep, and that's the same guy we keep seeing. Now, Horatio says, I'm not sure why he's here. In what particular thought to work, I know not. But in the gross and scope of mine opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but something is not right. This is indicating that there's a problem somewhere. Okay? Now, Marcellus takes this up as a question, because he knows that something is a little awkward in Denmark right now. And he says, okay, since we're thinking about some strangeness in our land, maybe you can tell us if that has anything to do with, or if it might be related to, this. Our strict and most observant watch, the guard duty is like increased, and the daily cast of brazen cannon and implements of war. Every day they're making new cannons, and they're building weapons for us to go to war. And we, meanwhile, are guarding late at night. And not only that, the shipwrights are working so that they don't divide Sunday from the week. They're working 7 days a week. What is it that's going on here? Who can inform me? Horatio says, well, that can I. At least part of it. Okay? And then he tells the story. Now, rather than reading it all word for word, I'll clarify that Fortinbras of Norway is who he's talking about. And he's also talking about valiant Hamlet. That's the dead king, not the son who's still alive. Okay? The story that he tells is in sort of here it's in an awkward language. Here, of course, it's in the language that you have read. But in short, he says the king, who's now dead, fought with Fortinbras of Norway, and he killed him. And when he killed him, he got he was the vanquisher, and he got all of the lands that Fortinbras owned. Fortinbras forfeited the lands that he owned when Hamlet killed him. So now it appears as though young Fortinbras is trying to come and he's planning on attacking to get back control of his lands. That's what's going on. Okay? Bernardo says that sounds about right. That sounds like a reason, or that sounds like why we're guarding, why we're building weapons. And not only that, Bernardo says, it also seems that would be a good reason for the king that was killed, or the king that's dead, our King Hamlet, to come in his military armor. He comes armed at night, and he is concerned about these wars that are coming up. Now that would make sense for Ghost to come back and sort of want to help out with the war, or want to pay attention to his country, or at the very least, that would be a reason why he could not just pass on easily to heaven. Okay, and Horatio says, yes, this is interesting. This is a troubling notion. And then he talks about some history. He says it was similar, like when in Julius in Rome, he died, and there was all sorts of weird signs. It certainly makes sense that when our king dies and we're going to war, that would explain why the ghost is out here. Now, while he's talking, sort of right in the middle of his little speech, the ghost comes back. And they say, oh, soft. Soft means look. It means pay attention. It means wait a minute. Check that out. Okay? So they say, here comes the ghost again. And the ghost looks at them. He's paying attention to them. And again, Horatio says, talk to me. If there is, let me ask you, ghost, what you might need. Okay? If there's any good deed that we're supposed to do that will help you move on, speak to me. If you are privy to that country's fate, if you know any secrets about what's happening to us, your country, speak to me. Or if perhaps you have some treasure that you hid somewhere and you are anxious about somebody finding that, well, you can tell me that too. It's almost comical. I'll help you get to heaven. All you have to do is, tell me where your treasure is that you're guarding. Okay. Stay and speak. But right at that moment, the cock crows, the rooster. Okay. That means morning is coming. And then the ghost starts to leave. Okay, the ghost disappears when the rooster crowed. Okay. Now Marcella says, "Oh, it was gone. We were insulting it by trying to hurt it." And Bernardo says, "Well, it left right when the rooster crowed." And Horatio says, Oh yeah, that's because it was morning. Okay. Here's some more of Horatio's education, more of Horatio's understanding about ghosts. He says, the rooster, the cock, which is the trumpet of the morn, it implies that the day is coming, and it's like a warning to anything that's not supposed to be here on earth. Okay, the extravagant and erring spirit. Okay, if there's any if there's any um, beast or ghost or spirit of some sort that's out and about, it can't stand the light of day. Okay? The daylight is God's eye on the earth, and and a secretive spirit can't stand that. And so, upon the crowing of the cock, the morning comes, and it runs away. Now, Marcellus says here, yep, that's like on Christmas they say that the rooster crows all night long, so that holy night nothing awful will happen. Okay, Horatio says, yep, I've heard that. That makes sense. I've heard that and believe it. But I think we need to go, and I think we need to impart what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet. We need to tell the prince that his dad's ghost is out there walking around. Marcella says, "Yep, let's do it." And I know where he is. Okay? So, there's the end of scene 1.